Welcome back, everyone. This video is going to serve as your lesson demonstration for your one-point perspective project. Please feel free to come back and watch this video as many times as you need to. Pause, rewind, fast forward to make sure that you understand all the steps of production so you can earn the best possible grade. If you're watching this for the first time, please watch it in its entirety without skipping anything. But you are able to come back and watch this if you have any questions about the lesson or you are having trouble with a certain step. So I'm going to move through this rather quickly because I do have a limited time to make this video. So again, if you need to pause it and I'm moving too fast, please do so. But this video will always be here for your reference to look back on. So your first step of the project is to do linear perspective. We need to have something called a horizon line. A horizon line is this center line that goes down the middle of your paper. This separates the sky from the ground. So everything above the line is the sky, and everything below the ground, or below the line, is the ground. Now, the key here, though, is as you do this on your paper, if you're following along with me in the video, you're pressing very lightly because we're going to be doing a lot of erasing of this line as we draw our buildings. I'll be demonstrating that in the coming slides, but please press lightly. If you press too hard, it can affect your craftsmanship and you can lose some craftsmanship points on the final grade of your project. So the horizon line we just learned about, you can draw it in three general locations. You can either draw it down the direct center of your paper, and that would give you a ground level perspective, like you are standing on the same plane, the same level as the buildings or the objects that you see. But there is the option to raise the horizon line higher on the paper, which would give you a worm's eye perspective, like you're looking up at something, or you can shift that line lower to give you a bird's eye perspective, like you're looking down upon something from the top down. But for the purpose of this project, especially for those who are doing this for the first time, I highly advise just doing the ground level perspective to keep it simple. I think it's the easiest to follow, especially if you haven't done this before. Now, you are welcome to do any of the three perspectives. That's why I just demonstrated that to you. But again, I would still recommend just doing it in the paper. And I'm going to be using the ground level perspective myself throughout the rest of this video. So that was just to give you a little understanding of the horizon line and how shifting it can change your project, because I want you guys to have as much creative leeway as possible as you design your project. All right. So for the second step, after you have your horizon line, you're also going to add a vanishing point right in the center. And that has to be on the horizon line itself. You cannot create a point somewhere off the horizon line. It has to be directly on it. On the line. It can be shifted left or right. I technically could put a vanishing point there or anywhere on the line like over here. But again, to make this as easy as possible for everyone, I'd highly recommend just putting it in the center. So you got your vanishing point is that red dot and it's on the horizon line. You want to create that dot lightly as well. We will be erasing that similar to the horizon line as the project goes on. But I do want to note that you're not making a red dot. You are not making this big dark dot in your paper. It's going to be a small little point on the paper, and which also leads me to the point that I'm showing you this graphically on my laptop for the demonstration, but everyone is doing this on paper with a pencil and a ruler. I repeat, you are doing this with paper, a pencil, and a ruler. Please do not be doing this on Sketchbook or on some digital design software on your iPad. All right, so step 3, after you have your horizon line and the vanishing point, you're going to take your ruler, which you're going to use for every line for your buildings and details, and you are going to angle it from the vanishing point to draw 2 lines for your road. So now we separated the sky from the ground, and we have the focus point, the vanishing point for where our lines are going to meet. I'm going to take my ruler. Mine's going to be this gray bar here. So you want to take your ruler, you want to make sure it's touching the vanishing point, and you're going to draw your line coming from that vanishing point on the left, and then you're going to rotate your ruler, make sure it's still touching the vanishing point, and draw a line on the right. That will represent the 2 lines of your road. And again, if I'm moving too fast, please pause the video as needed. So step 4 is we're now going to draw 2 additional lines on each side of the road. This is going to add a level of thickness to our curb to make it look more three-dimensional, to make it look more realistic than just having 2 flat lines. So this looks like you can actually step up on either side of the road here, adding the level of realism. So what we've done here, we've only really created a framework for the project. So even though we're on step 5, our project has really just begun, because now we just have the layout of where the building is going to go, where we're going to draw our cityscape and our city buildings. So the first step to drawing your buildings in 1-point perspective, there are 3 total. You'll first draw a flat rectangular square, then you'll angle the corners, and then you'll connect it. It's going to go flat shape, angle it, connect it, flat, angle, connect. Those 3 steps you'll repeat over and over. The whole project is just 3 steps, and once you kind of get the hang of it, as long as you're always using a ruler and you're always touching the vanishing point, drawing flat, angle, connect, you should be good for the rest. And I'm going to demonstrate that now. So first you just draw a rectangular square with your ruler. When drawing that, please make sure that all sides are parallel with the paper. And what that would look like is, I often see students will have the ruler angled like this, when the edge of the paper over here to the side, you can see my cursor, is straight up and down and the ruler is angling towards it. You want to compare your ruler to the edge of the paper and make sure it is straight at all times, and make sure that it is also straight with horizontally with the top and bottom of the paper as well. That is a very common mistake that I see with students, although it is probably one of the easiest things to complete in the assignment. Students just forget to do that. And lastly, please make sure you erase your horizon line after you draw your shape. You can see our horizon line used to be here, and now it's gone, because as something covers something else, you can no longer see the details that were once there. So like my face right now that you can see on the video, now you see me, now you don't, because my hand is covering it. So as you draw a building over your horizon line, just make sure you are erasing that. So that also explains why we drew that so lightly, because you erase it with each building as you go. So step 6, you're going to angle your ruler to touch the vanishing point and a corner of your rectangle. You also are going to repeat this step for the second corner of your rectangle. You're doing it for both the top left and the bottom right, if you were following along with this example here. And lastly, only draw your line as long as you need it. So to clarify what all that means, if I take my ruler and I get my pen tool here so I can draw, you want to make sure your ruler is touching both the vanishing point and the corner. So I'm going to draw a line from that corner to the vanishing point, and also the vanishing point, or this corner to the vanishing point. Now the vanishing point creates an angle. You don't actually need to draw the line like this. I don't need to draw my line all the way to the vanishing point. That creates the angle. So I could draw my line randomly this way, but I know it's wrong because my ruler is not touching the vanishing point. So you can see how the angle of the line changes. But as long as it's touching the vanishing point, it's always going to be correct. So what I'm trying to get at is, I could have a thin building, I could have a medium-sized building, or even a longer building. That's up to you. But what I would not do is always draw your lines to go all the way to the vanishing point. That is a whole extra step for you. It's a whole lot of extra work, and I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. Because if you wanted your building to only be so long, if you only wanted your building here, that would leave you to have to erase all this extra work. So basically just draw your line only as long as you need it. So once you have the flat side of your building, this step you're just angling your lines as far as you want them, and then stop. And like I said, the 3 steps are draw flat, angle, and then connect. We've already drawn our flat side, we've angled our corners, and now we're going to connect it. So I'm going to go to the next slide. So here I've connected my lines. And just to demonstrate, something that students often get hung up on is they will draw one line longer than the other, which is very common, and it's probably going to happen to you. But what I'm going to get at is, make sure that when you connect your lines, you are not connecting a longer line to a shorter line like this, because if you note, this line is not straight with the paper like we had said it needs to be in previous steps. What you want to do is draw your line straight up from the shortest line. So we're going to draw it straight up from the shortest line to connect it so it's still perfectly parallel, and then we can erase what other steps that we need to. Now I mentioned you could do a square or a rectangle. I'm briefly going to draw a very quick square. Just shift my camera here. If you have a square and your square is, sorry about that guys, oh, because I'm on the eraser. If I draw a square and my square, the height of my square is shorter or below the horizon line, it's down here, then you're going to see actually 3 corners. You're going to see the roof, whereas this square is taller than the horizon line here, so you can't see the ceiling, you can't see the roof of the building. So if you have a square, you're actually connecting 3 corners. I'm going to connect that top right, bottom left, and then top left. And that's going to give you the three. You can see the extra side, or you can see the roof of the building. So please note that if you draw a square that is, or any shape that is beneath the horizon line, you will be able to see the roof in that subject, in that building. All right, so moving on to the next one. I think I got about 5 more minutes left. We're almost done here. Once you have drawn the flat side of your building and you've angled the corners and then you've connected the sides, then you have successfully created one single building. So I'm highlighting this one building we just created together in the previous slide. So step 8, it basically says just repeat steps 5 through 7, which said draw a flat side, angle it, and connect it. So I drew flat sides for all these buildings, then I angled my lines, and then lastly connected it. So if you just repeat those 3 steps you just learned, you can very easily fill the entire space of the paper. And with only 5 buildings, it doesn't take a whole lot. You can draw multiple buildings if you want, but it doesn't take a whole lot of buildings to fill this space. And 5 buildings is more than enough. Just fill the paper, make it engaging, make it interesting. The more space you fill in the paper, the better. All right, so you just learned the 5 steps to how to draw the building shape to make it get smaller, to make it angle back as it goes back into space. But now step 9, which is also one of your objectives, is you need to add interior details to your building. So sometimes students forget to focus heavily on this. They'll just draw one door or one window. You want to give each building its own identity. So this building, I started doing that by adding my windows and adding a door. And then when I added the windows on the angled side, I had to make sure that all the angles went directly towards the vanishing point themselves. Note that my ruler is touching the vanishing point, just like it did when I angled the side of my building, just like it did when I created the road. You want to make sure that your ruler is touching the vanishing point and creates a specific angle for the tops and bottoms of your details on the angled side. And note how the angle changes. You can see the angle of the windows changing, where I was going from the top right down to the bottom left. And as I shift and pivot my ruler, it goes from the vanishing point on the left down to the right. So the angles do change, but the key is that anything that's on the angled side of the building must be angled to the vanishing point itself, and anything on the flat side can just stay perfectly flat, left to right, up and down, and anything angled, the top and bottom lines have to angle to the vanishing point. So this is where a lot of students will probably get hung up on, is drawing their angles on the angled side. But please come back and watch this video or message me if you have any questions. The last step of the video for today is to keep adding details. You have all the previous slides showed you all the skills you need as far as drawing the building shape, angling it to the vanishing point, connecting it, and adding building details. So if you keep adding details and keep giving each building its own identity, you can see how far you can push it. You can see how quickly this can look like a realistic space that you can actually see in everyday life. So that concludes this video. Please make sure that after this video you work on creating a sketch that basically follows the demonstration I just gave you. So you essentially be watching this video a second time, but you can just pause it. You don't need to sit and watch the entire 14 minutes of the video. Just pause it, make sure you follow step by step, create your sketch, and submit it to the day 1 student progress as for your work for today. This will just demonstrate your understanding of the objectives, to show me that you're starting to build an understanding of linear perspective, of 1-point perspective, and that you can have a starting point for tomorrow when you start your final project and start your own original creative idea. We'll be looking at lesson examples tomorrow of past student projects, and even giving you other options, from drawing a city street to an interior room or even just an exterior single building. We'll be looking at those options tomorrow. But again, please make sure you're working in your sketch and you're following the steps of the video, and submit that to today's student progress. All right, guys, message me if you have any questions. I look forward to seeing your sketches, to see how you built your understanding, to see how good of a job I did creating this video. Again, follow the steps. If you just have your 5 buildings and just 1 building detail, that's all I ask. You do not need to fully detail your sketch. Just show me you know how to do a horizon line. You can do your street with the curb. You can fill your space with buildings and at least detail 1 building itself. All right, everyone, I will talk to you all soon, and please remember to submit your work for today. Okay, bye everyone.